All right, so today is our final day, day 4 of Quantum Leap Week, and we're going to be talking about money, which is kind of always a fun one for some people, not so fun for others to talk about. But I enjoy this class, and this is honestly like one of the classes that has had one of the biggest impacts in my life over the past few years, just because it's gotta let some more people in, just because it's important, right? Today's class is all about funding the life you desire. We unfortunately don't live in a world like we live, fortunately or unfortunately, right? We live in a world where money does matter, right? And so unfortunately, we live in a world where money can be a bit taboo. People don't talk about money. A lot of children aren't really raised in environments where money is talked about either, right? Parents don't teach their kids about money and how it works and how to use it and everything else. So guess what? Today we are going to have that conversation. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you now. You're all able to see my screen here? All right, let me get my Zoom set up here properly.
Yes, we see the screen.
So that I can see all of you as well. And of course, there's more people coming in. Let me get the chat open here as well. Okay. Let me make that smaller. All right. So again, let's start with some ground rules. We're going to be present. We're going to turn our phones off or to vibrate or do not disturb. We're going to turn our videos on so that we can see each other's smiling faces. All right. Oh, we got Julie in the Ridgefield office. All right. I'd recognize that wall anywhere. Love it. All right. We're going to keep confidentiality, right? Recognize people's different learning styles and opinions. We're going to help each other learn. We're going to participate because not one of us is smarter than all of us combined. We're not taking any breaks today, and we're not really going to be breaking up into group exercise or discussions. But so just enjoy your time in class and let's have a little fun. And hopefully you'll enjoy today's session as much as some of you have enjoyed the rest of them. I know I certainly will. So today is all about funding the life you desire. We're going to do this kind of in 3 parts. The first is by talking about the world and recognizing it as a world of abundance. The second is by connecting your life purpose to the pursuit of financial wealth as well, which is a big key. So taking a lot of what we've talked about earlier this week and now connecting it to financial wealth as well. And then third, exploring strategic and purposeful approaches to financial success. So we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty about money and finances. But here's the thing, like what all of this, as everything, this entire class has been based around what is the one consistency throughout this course that you've
Small
taken
changes
all
that you can
now?
make, like
What?
currently. The small changes that you can make, like now,
Yeah, it's all about small changes. And where do those changes need to start?
within.
With mindset, right? Like almost everything starts with mindset. So I like to ask big questions, right? Great first question to ask to really start with the mindset is, how will you know when you have enough money? Because it's not about, I ask this question all the time. I'll get this response from agents all the time. Dan, I really don't feel the need or have any desire to grow my business. I make good money, right? And I asked the question, well, do you make enough money? They say, well, yeah. And I said, how do you know? Are you sure? And and that's the moment where I'll get like kind of a funny look. Like, well, what do you mean? Because here's the thing, we never know when we'll have enough money, because we'll never know how much money we actually need. You might be making enough money now to live the lifestyle that you want, but how many people have parents that are still alive? Okay. Well, what would happen if your parents weren't able to take care of themselves? Do you have enough money, or are you making enough money that you'd be able to take care of them too? How many people on this call have children? What would happen if one of your children was in a position where they weren't able to take care of themselves for the rest of their life, where you had to support that child for the rest of their life? Do you have enough money now to do that? Right? So the reason to ask a question like this, how will you know when you have enough money, is because it's to get to the point that you'll never know if you'll have enough money. The other reason why you'll never know if you'll ever have enough money is because the purpose of money is to accomplish essentially two things: to give you a financial foundation, right, to essentially provide the life or the lifestyle, right, the material base for the lifestyle that you want. However, the second piece to it, which is the more important piece, is to fund your personal mission, which is what we talked about yesterday, right? What is it that you feel like you are put on this earth for? What is your purpose for being here? And we talked a lot about yesterday how most people don't have one, right? And yet the people who are truly, truly successful, like incredibly successful, almost always have one, or they do. They always have one, right? I'm going to go back to them because it's an easy example, right? But Elon Musk, huge personal mission, right? To save mankind by reducing our carbon by reducing our carbon footprint and colonizing Mars, right? Now here's the key, here's the interesting question. In order to colonize Mars, do you think you're going to need a lot of money? Right? Do you think at some point Elon Musk may have told himself, you know what, if I really want to do this, I might just need to be the richest person on the planet. If I was the richest person on the planet, I could probably accomplish my goal, my mission, right? And I'm going to need buy-in from a ton of other really, really rich people too. But guess what? Elon Musk is the richest person on the planet right now. Although there are some people that think it's Vladimir Putin, and we just don't know about his money. So I don't know. Right? But my point is this: we never know. Like, the point of money is to fulfill your life, to fulfill your mission. Right? That's the true purpose of it. The problem is most people don't have one. So how much money do you think you attract into your world if you don't have a purpose for it? Right? It's building a net worth that provides that income for yourself, so that you can go out and fulfill your personal mission, the reason why you were put on this earth. And so that's why we spent the past 3 days focused on that, right? That's why we ended the third day working and talking about a personal mission, because it's the key that's it's that drive. It's that vision that you're going to create for yourself that's going to pull you through all of those challenges. That's going to push you to do better, to do more, to think bigger, right? All right. So we're going to spend most of, now that we've kind of talked about that and kind of put that out there, we're going to spend the rest of the day talking about the rules of money. Because once you've become clear on your personal mission and you start building a life towards that, what tends to happen is that money is going to start finding you. And if you don't know the rules of money, it'll leave you just as quickly. All right. So we're going to talk, we're going to spend the rest of our day talking about a world of abundance, how wealth is a state of mind. We're going to talk about some strategies to create successful money management. We're going to talk about the path of money. We're going to talk about saving versus investing. And then we're going to talk about some truths about money as well at the end. All right. And clarify some truths and lies around money. Okay. All right. We'll keep moving. So it's all about abundance. True wealth is not a dollar figure. True wealth is about having more than you need in all areas of your life, right? Not just about money. What does a wealthy life look like in terms of relationships? What do you think?
Happily married, still have the same group of friends from high school.
Maybe. How many people want to have the same friends that they had in high school?
No.
I
have some, but not all of them.
I still do.
Right? I
Oh,
do
I
as
do
well. Like
too.
I have a really close group of friends from high school, and yet there are some people that I was friends with in high school that I don't want to see again. Right?
Maybe because John is so young, so he hasn't gotten, it's only been a few years since he was last around.
But here's the thing.
Every day.
Some of them don't
hold
grow,
on.
and you do.
So yeah, it's about who those people are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for John, he's got really close relationships with the people that he was with in high school, that he was friends with in high school. But I loved what Diane says, right? Is people grow, people change. Having wealth, a wealthy life in terms of your relationships mean you have people in your world that are supporting you. You have people in your world that are pushing you, right? You have people in your world that you're learning, that you can learn from.
Right. Wait till you start doing better than some of them. That's going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah. Or wait until some of them start developing habits that you're not so keen on.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or start bringing people into their world that you don't necessarily think are a good match for yours. Right. So key relationships isn't necessarily about, yeah, that's great. That's a great comment too, Dave. Right. Some of the people that you weren't friends in high school with, you reconnect with later on in life and are suddenly great people, right? Or big, important people in your world. Yeah, Julie.
I think different phases of life have different people in them. And right now I've been calling my database, and I actually called someone this morning that I haven't spoken to since 2014. And her first words were, "Thank God you called me. I've been so lonely." And I was scared to call this person because I haven't called her since 2014.
Yeah. And yet there you were, right?
Yeah.
So key relationships. Yeah, John.
I was saying that not the same group of friends that I had in high school were also in middle school and elementary. And yeah, as I said, I don't have the experience yet to see what comes down in the future. But like also then I'm also like, those guys have been my guys just because like I feel like with dudes, you could just like bust each other's chops. And that I think that's why we stay friends longer. But like on a more serious note, I'm starting to go to on Wednesday, went to a networking event with real estate investors. Do I invest in real estate? No, not yet. But I'm trying to expand my circles and get into new circles that I eventually want to get into. Exactly. That way, I still have my solid group of friends that I can always like fall back on. but then I'm also expanding into other circles to tap into
Sure.
the people that are going to help propel me in the right direction.
So listen, let me be clear, John. I don't think that you're wrong about having a group of friends from high school, right? Or still being friends with them or whatever. Because for some people, that is exactly what they need. For some people, it isn't. It's the key is this: having wealth in key relationships means that you have the people in your world that are going to both, that are going to provide the people that you need, right? I love getting to, I don't see or talk to my friends from high school as often, but every time I do, it's like no time had passed, right? We can fall right back into we've kind of fall right back into the conversations the way we used to have. And, we can joke with each other and like kind of bust each other's chops a little bit. Right. And there's something about that keeps me grounded, right? That reminds me of where I came from and who I am, right? Or who I was. But there's also part of that reminds me of who I was, right? Which isn't maybe who I am today or who I want to be tomorrow. So does that make my relationship with them any less valuable? No, absolutely not. That's still a key relationship, right? It's like trying to think, like it's like in Scrooge, right, where he has to go back in time, past, present, and future, right? It's important to have all three, right? What about your areas of discipline, like things like work or your hobbies, right? How important is abundance and wealth in those areas, right? To have a job that excites you, that you're passionate to wake up to every morning, right? To have hobbies that stretch you intellectually or physically, right? To be healthy, right? What would wealth, would you say from a health standpoint that wealth would be somebody that, is living a healthy lifestyle or not, right? And what about your personal mission? Do you have one? Are you pursuing it? So when it comes to wealth, it's all about a financially wealthy. Now, when it comes to wealth and finance, a financially wealthy person is simply someone who's accumulated enough wealth that they have the unearned income, meaning passive income necessary to achieve their personal life mission. So here's the thing: when you define wealth in that way, it really comes down to a state of mind, because there's not a number that you're going to put on it, because everybody's definitions are going to be different. So if wealth is abundance, what do you suppose I mean when we say wealth is a state of mind, right?
Well, there's no one definition. It's whatever it is to you is what it is for you. And what's
Sure.
to me or anybody else on this call is what it is to them.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So let's talk about some of the rules of money now. And we're going to start with personal money management, because the goal is this: I want to go back, actually. Let me go back a page here. Ooh, I got off the screen here. Right? If you choose happiness and you know your mission and you focus on what matters most, you will attract money and success. All right? And if you use discipline to create habits and surround yourself with people who support your mission, it will all happen, right? Like, you will find financial wealth as well as personal wealth and wealth in your relationships. right? This is essentially the path right here. Know your mission. Focus on what matters most. All right. Use discipline to create empowering habits. And surround yourself with people who support your mission, and you will attract money and success. It's a given. Problem is, most people don't do things in that order. They focus on the money first, right? I have an agent actually that I'm going to be meeting with just after Thanksgiving. And the reason why I'm meeting with her after Thanksgiving is because she's super excited about this goal setting meeting that her manager. So is an agent that I've met with a couple times, and she's unhappy with where she is in her business. And so I challenged her. I said, well, we talked through, we had a very long conversation about it. And I said, well, it sounds like you're missing some people in your world. And she agreed. And she was missing some people because she wasn't thinking big enough. She didn't have any support around her to help her stay accountable. She didn't have any support around her to help her to bounce ideas off of and things like that. And so I said, okay, well, here's your homework, right? Let's go out and find some people. So what did she do? She went and she talked to her manager about it. And her manager said, okay, let's sit down and talk about some goals for next year. And here's what, and so when I talked to her earlier this week, and she told me she was all excited about this. I said, great. I want you to talk to your manager about your goals. And then I want you to meet with me afterward so we can talk about it. Here's what I know is going to happen, because this is the way almost everybody sets goals. They're going to sit down and they're going to talk about money. They're going to sit down and they're going to talk about money, and then they're going to talk about how many deals she needs to do in order to make the money she needs. But what they're not going to do is talk about why she wants to make that money. What they're not going to talk about is the purpose behind it. And without that conversation, without a mission, right? It's just a dream. It's just a fantasy. Without that connection, the money doesn't matter. The goal doesn't matter. Right? So it all starts with the mission. So the first step is to determine your personal mission. We've spent a lot of time doing that, right? The second step is to then establish financial goals that will help you achieve that personal mission. The third step is to then choose to study money. Because if you don't study money the same way you would study anything else, you're not gonna understand it. You'll be financially illiterate, right? Know how money works. Know how to invest it. Know how to hold it and to save it. And you do that first. The first thing you do is by following a budget. Create budgets for yourself so that you can avoid. And the main reason to create a budget is to avoid impulse more than anything else. The reason why most people spend more money than they make is because they don't have a plan for their money. And that's all a budget is. A lot of people see budgets as a restriction. Oh, I can't spend money on this because I only budgeted $200 for it. And what you're really doing when you budget is actually saying, you know what, this is what I want my money to do. It gives you the opportunity to be purposeful about your money, the same way we've been talking about being purposeful about your time. It allows you to focus your money on what's most important to you, as opposed to what shows up in your world that day. How many people have bought something off of an Instagram ad? Right?
And it's never worth it. We have a thing at home now. If it's on Instagram, it's probably bad.
Yeah, exactly. I only have one thing that I've bought off of Instagram that I was really happy about, and it was this ring. And it's been great. That was an Instagram ad. It took me a long time though. I didn't just like click on it. Like I saw the ad and I was like, oh, that's an interesting product. And then I did some research and then I did a bunch of, and then about probably like 3 months later, I actually bought it. But still, right? Having a budget just allows you to be purposeful about what you want your money to accomplish. It allows you to take those financial goals that you have to achieve your personal mission and actually put your money to work towards achieving it. All right, 5th rule. This is going to be a tough one for some of you. Save first and then pay with cash. Don't finance luxury. Yep. John, that is accurate.
Does that include real estate, Dan? This is one that I wanted to get some clarity on.
Yeah, there's always some debate around that. Honestly, my opinion of buying real estate all cash versus financing is that financing is what allows for leverage.
Yeah.
And it's what allows so many people. It's what allows us to earn the types of returns that are honestly like really reserved for the wealthy, right? It's where you can get nice, Dana. It's where you can get double-digit returns, which are typically reserved for, getting double-digit returns is typically reserved for things like IPOs, private investment, private equity investment, and things like that. It's very rare. Even the stock market, S&P 500, like there actually tend to be high single-digit returns over the long run, right? Like 9%, maybe 10% return. But to get 20% returns, 15% returns, like typically, like it's very hard to do that without leverage.
I agree. And that's why, if I had $200,000, instead of buying one $200,000 house, I'd rather go out there and buy, 10 $200,000 houses with leverage.
Yeah. Now
that's why
you have to be, but here's the thing is just like with anything, you've got to be careful around it. Right.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about investing because that's also part of the key. What I'm talking about here, as far as saving first and then paying with cash, it is lifestyle stuff, right?
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Right.
Yep.
It's buy with cash. Don't pay interest for frivolous things. Yeah, John.
I think another good tip that I learned is use your credit card like it was a debit card. Just think of it the same way as if it was a debit card, and like if you buy something, pay it off immediately and stuff like that. And that way you're not worrying or scrambling at the end of the month to try and gather money together to end up paying it off or letting the interest even come into play.
I mean, you could use the same strategy. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of people out there that talk about using credit cards for points and travel and things like that. And listen, we do it every year. I mean, as a business, we have a business credit card. Like I have one, like all of the leadership team has them, and we pay for things on them. But here's the thing, we always have the cash to pay them off every month. So we don't pay any interest on any of it. And the points that we accumulate allow for all of our staff travel for the year. Right. So when we have to fly 6-7 people down to family reunion, we're flying everybody down there for free. Right. When we have to fly to Austin for mega camp, we're flying everybody there for free. Right. So that I would say using credit is fine, John, but you should still be saving first. Right. Save first, buy it with credit, and pay off the credit.
Yeah, I think that
Don't
for
pay
a lot of
interest
people,
is the key.
for a lot of people, COVID sort of helped them with this because they were earning their usual incomes, but they didn't have anything to spend money on because the world was shut down. So they paid off those
Yeah.
credit cards and now they can actually afford to pay with cash for possibly the first times, in
Yeah.
years.
The US savings rate is at the highest level it's been in decades, actually. But yeah, the key is to save first and buy with cash so that you're avoiding credit, because you're avoiding interest, because consumer interest is some of the highest interest you'll find anywhere. All right, put your needs before wants. Just because you want something doesn't mean you should have it. If there are things that you need, that they are more important than what you want. Repair or buy used before buying new. How many people here try to fix things before they go out and replace it? Right? How many people here buy brand new cars versus used cars? Or vice versa, right? I'm gonna have a hard time buying a new car ever again, I think. But we'll see. Depends. Gary Keller likes to tell a story about how he drove I think it was a Honda Accord. It was either a Honda Accord or like a Toyota something similar, right? For years.
It was a Ford Taurus. I listened
Are
to the
you
podcast.
sure?
Yeah, it was a Ford Taurus. And then
Well, maybe
At
he
least-
just changes. Maybe he changes the car depending on who he's talking to. It wouldn't surprise me. But he talked about how he finally bought a Lexus because like the company had grown so big and like they were in multiple states at that time, and he was still driving the same car that was like 10 years old from when he was like, it was the first car that he bought after like getting a job and stuff like that and working real estate. And his agents and like the leadership team at Keller Williams that was like growing the company, they were like, Gary, you're having people fly in from like all over the country to sell them franchises and stuff like that, and spread the company like across the country. And then you're taking them out to lunch in like your 10, 15-year-old like Honda Accord or Ford Taurus or whatever it was. Like, you need to get a new car. And after years of telling him that, he finally gave in. And granted, like, it's not like he couldn't afford a brand new car, but anyway. So anyway, but yeah, repair or buy used before buying new. And sometimes buying new is the only option, but that's fine. And then the eighth piece is to purchase insurance protection. Protect your assets, right? Protect yourself against liability and loss. How many people have health insurance? How many people have disability insurance that would cover them in case something happened and you couldn't work for the rest of your life? Yeah, very few people actually carry that. All right. And then follow a sequential investment strategy. Your investment strategy should build off of themselves. I love that, Dave. Yeah. Have you guys seen Warren Buffett's house? It's a pretty big house, actually. It is like I think a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot house, but I don't believe it was when he bought it.
No. Yep.
Right. And it's still only, it's still, there are people probably in this room that live in more expensive houses than one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Well, wouldn't we all? I mean, Fairfield County is a lot more expensive than Omaha, Nebraska.
I'm just saying.
That's for sure.
Sure. All right. And then the last piece is to help others through generous giving. Giving should be a part of your mission, right? If your mission is only self-serving, it's not going to get you very far. You should have this built into your strategy. All right. Now the next piece to financial success is understanding the reality of saving versus investing. And I'm gonna give you a quick exercise here to show you that you can't save your way to financial success. You have to invest your money. And you have to invest it for a good return, which is what we're gonna do next. So here's an example. If say you had $100,000 a year coming in passively, you didn't have to work for it. If that's your goal, is to have that kind of income, you'd need roughly $2.5 million in net worth of cash to invest for you to live forever off of $100,000 a year. So say you make $100,000 a year, which is why you want that passively, so that you don't have to work anymore. Well, you'd have to pay about $25,000 to $30,000 in taxes. You're going to need to save, if you were to save $30,000 a year in savings, that would only give you about $40,000 a year to live off of. So even if you were able to do that, it would take you over 80 years to save the $2.5 million that you would need. Right? So saving alone isn't enough to create financial independence. Which means you need to invest. Sorry, I just gave this to you. I don't know why it makes me do it twice. Like, just cleared it, and now I got to do this. All right. Okay. So let's talk about investing now. When you earn money, you're essentially, there's only two ways to make money. The first is you work for it, right? You put in your time, your effort, your energy, and you work for money. That's human capital. The other way to make money is through assets, right? Where your money is working for you. Either way, wherever your money is coming from, it creates cash flow. And there's essentially only four things that you can do with your money. You can spend it, you can save it, you can give it away and donate it, or you can invest it. Now, there's really only two basic investment choices. You can either lend your money to somebody else for an expected return, or you can buy investments with it, right? And own the investment. In each category, there's essentially two choices. You can invest passively, or you can invest actively. So in an active investment, you control the investment, right? But again, you have two choices. You can actively lend, or you can actively own. So examples of actively owning something would be like a business, right? You can invest your money into a business that you own, or you can invest in real estate and that you own. Now, if you want to actively lend your money, you can do that too, through things like private lending or owner financing properties, as just two examples. Now, on the passive side of things, there's a lot more options, because this is where our society kind of wants you to put your money, right? And so you can passively lend your money, and that would be by doing things like buying CDs, like putting your money into CDs at like banks, or into treasury bills or bonds, or just putting your money into like a money market account with a bank. You're essentially lending your money to the bank or to the investment group, and they're doing with it what they want, and giving you a fixed interest rate or a fixed return. But then there's also things that you can own passively, like stocks, right? How many people here own stocks? Right? You don't get a say in how the company is run, right? You don't get a say in what they do with the money that you've bought, right? So it's a passive investment, but you do own something, right? You do own a piece of the company. Real estate investment trusts, right? You own a piece of the trust, but you have no say in how it's run. Mutual funds, same thing. Your money gets spread out amongst a fund of stocks, right? They get invested. You have no control over it, but you do own it. So those are essentially the two basic investments choices that you have and the two basic positions that you get to take. There's no right or wrong combination of these things. However, there does tend to be an expected return. You're going to get higher returns on the active side of things. This is where you're going to get the highest returns. On the passive side of things, this is where you're going to get the lowest returns. Now, lending passively is where you'll get the lowest returns on this list. Beaten by just, owning passively or lending actively can be about even on the returns, but owning tends to be a little bit lower than lending actively. The best returns are when you actively own something. That is where you will, without a doubt, make the most money and the highest returns. However, it also tends to be the riskiest. Either way, you get financial returns, which then do what? Where's my mouse? There we go. It goes right back into the capital assets, and the process starts all over again. Make sense? Do we understand the choices? If you take anything away from this, please understand that you have essentially 4 choices to make every time a dollar hits your bank account. And whether you're making that choice actively or not, you're making that choice. You're choosing to spend it, to save it, to donate it, or invest it. Those are really the only 4 things the only 4 ways that money's going to go. And so recognize that that's a choice you're actually making, whether you realize it or not. All right, we talked about the financial returns. So I want to talk a little bit about the investment paths, right? I mentioned that some places get better returns than others, some are safer than others. And the reason why we want to talk about this is because how the types of returns that you get on your money is really, really important. So just look at this chart. How much money, if you were to invest $100 a month, that's roughly, that's going to be $1,200 a year, right? So I want you to look at the differences in returns over time and how big of a difference that makes. If you were to invest $100 a month and just put it in the bank where you're essentially getting 0 interest on it, at the end of 30 years, you'll have $36,000. If you were to invest that money or put it into, say, CDs, right, that are going to get you like a 2% return, you'd make a little bit more, right? But after 10 years, you've made less than $1,000 difference, right? It's like an $800 difference. You've invested almost $10,000 and you've gotten only really about $800. Look what happens when you get up into the double digits, though. Look at what happens to that money. Your $9,600 that you've put in is now at almost 15,000. At 12 to 14%, which is kind of where the magic happens, at 14%, you've now doubled your money, right? If you look at this 12 to 14% in 10 years, you've pretty much doubled your money. You've made like a 100% return than if you had just put that money in the bank. Does this help to understand like why the financial return is so important? Look what happens. Compare 30 years at a 20% return versus 30 years at a 10% return. It's not double, right? Some people would say, oh, well, if you're getting a 20% return, that's twice as much as 10% return, right? No, it's almost 10x. It's almost 1,000% better.
Well, what kind of investment that exists where you could put in only 100 a month and get that kind of return? Because I mean, even the best mutual funds that, you know, if they accept a low monthly, don't give you that big a return generally.
Sure. Well, so here's the thing. It's not about. So your question is, okay, well, where can I invest $1,200 for a 20% return? Right? Is that the basic question?
Yeah, like what investment vehicle, what could you put in only 100 a month that would yield 20% or anything close to that? Yeah.
Let me ask, where could you invest $1,200 that you could get a 20% return? What do all of you have that you could invest in? A real estate
Okay.
business.
Mhm.
I guarantee if I were to sit down with any one of you and you said, I have $1,200 to invest in my business, I guarantee I could get you at least a 20% return on that money. What you're talking about, Dana, is can I for $1,200, could I turn around and get you an additional transaction? What is one transaction worth in your world?
10 times that.
Probably
More.
probably at least a $10,000 to $15,000 commission, right?
Mhm.
Okay, well, guess what? I just gave you a 100x return. And even if you say, well, Dan, there's a lot of work that has to go into that and everything else. Sure, absolutely. I get that, right? So if the money that you're investing in is say that's only worth 10% of the gross income, right? The money you invest is only worth 10% of the gross income it generates. Well, then in order for me to get a 20% return, right, which is $200, right? So for me to make $1,400, I essentially need to do what? One transaction for a $14,000 commission. Doesn't seem so impossible now, does it?
No, I guess I was thinking of like more just traditional investment vehicles.
Most people, when we talk about investing, they think of this. They think of this, which is, okay, can I put my money into a money market or into a stocks or into a 401k or some sort of fund, right? Or they think of real estate. And the problem is most people, and the problem with that mindset, Dana, is that it is incredibly limiting because there are so many more things you can do with your money.
I think maybe it's like when I see that kind of chart, it just reminds me of like the charts, like if you look into opening an IRA or a 529 account for your kids, they all give you this kind of a chart to show you,
of course,
put in X amount of dollars by the time you're ready to take money out from it. This is what it will be.
Yeah.
Might be worth.
And here's what those charts are going to look like. They're going to look like these columns in the middle here.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Where over 30 years, you'll put in $36,000 and they'll give you 150. You'll have 150 sitting there ready and waiting for you. That's why we spent time here, because this is what you need to focus on in order to drive the returns. You can't be a passive investor and that's not going to provide you the money that you need to live a big life. Right? There needs to be some form of active investing. So thank you, Dana, because that is the entire point of this chart, right? In having this conversation. Right?
Glad I could be of assistance.
Absolutely, right? We have to be active. We have to take the time to understand money. We have to learn about money. Gary used to, when Gary used to teach this class to kids, he would pick up his sneaker and he'd say, how much do you think this shoe is worth? Right? April got to see Jay Papazan do this weekend, right? How much do you think my shoes cost me? Nobody?
$150.
All right, 150. What? Who else?
What brand is it? I feel like I can get a pretty accurate.
Okay, here's my point. The fact that John just asked me what brand it is means that he has some inkling as to what shoes cost based on what brand they are, things like that, right? And here's the point of the exercise. Most people know the value of stuff that doesn't matter. Does it really matter how much my shoes are worth? And yet we don't take the time to understand the value of the things that will change our lives. We don't take the time to understand the true value of that insurance salesperson's pitch around why we should be buying, whole life insurance policies, or, the fund manager who's showing us a return without really showing us the fees that they charge us to do it. Right? We don't take the time to really understand the real estate values in our area and how to, and we don't take the time to understand how we can create massive investment opportunities through them, right? We don't take the time to understand businesses and how valuable they can be and how to run them. And yet those are the things that will make us the wealthiest in the world. And yet we all know whether or not a pair of shoes is a good deal. Right? We all can walk into a grocery store and know whether or not we're getting a good deal on that chicken we're buying. Right? What was the choose to study money? And yet we're not doing that. All right. Another truth about money is that money doesn't change you. This is a big myth, right? Oh, money changes people. It doesn't change people. It just exposes who you really are. If you look at, how many people have a friend who's extremely wealthy and has like the ugliest house in the world? Because they just have no taste, right? They have no sense of style. So when they were younger and they had no money, they had no taste and no style, but it didn't seem like you didn't notice it really because they just didn't have a lot of money to flaunt it. Now that they have money, like you notice how bad of taste they have because they have expensive, all kinds of stuff that's ugly, right? This is not a political comment whatsoever. But like Donald Trump and all of his gold and all like his houses and stuff like that, it's like, oh my gosh. He's got a ton of money. And yet he's got no taste, and it just exposes, having that money exposes who he really is, right? And again, this isn't a political thing. I'm just talking about the guy's style, which is interesting to say the least. Right? Money doesn't change who you are. It just exposes it. It amplifies it even. If you've got bad taste before you had money, give them some money, you're going to see how bad of taste they really have, right? If you're bad with money, if you're really bad with money and you're terrible at spending money or saving money or whatever, give somebody a lot of money and see how bad with money they really are, right? Anybody know the stat around how many people, like how long it typically takes for a Powerball winner to go broke?
I think 3 years.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars broke in 3 years. On average. Crazy, right? It doesn't change you, it just exposes who you really are. All right. 6 truths about money before we're going to wrap this up. All right. The key to happiness is not more money. Happiness is happiness and money is money. One thing does not lead to the other. All right. Whatever your life is about, more money will only amplify it, right? You can't buy style with money. You can't buy good taste or good decisions with money. You can only buy more with more money. Our life quest is to have the best life in the time available to us. Money doesn't buy value as it pertains to the best life possible, right? That is how you define it. Money will come to you when you are doing the right things. And money has its own rules and disciplines. And if you choose not to learn them, you're choosing financial illiteracy. Choose to learn about money. Choose to learn about investing. Make a choice around how much you want to invest, what percentage of your income you want to invest, and then stick to that. Create a plan. And then stick to it. All right. To wrap it up, where can you see abundance in your life? I want you to think about a few places where you can see abundance in your life.
Are we telling you?
You can, if you're feeling open to it, sure.
Yeah, I feel like everywhere. You know, I just feel like I'm very lucky and I've been very blessed in life. And, you know, not that I haven't worked hard, but I feel very like I have a lot of abundance in a lot of areas.
Awesome.
I'm gonna add on to this market center alone. There's like between all our market centers, there's a bunch of top agents, but there's still more business out there for all the other agents that are willing to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And also the support that the market center gives us.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right. Second goal, right? Understand your mission in life, understand your purpose, and then create a financial goal that serves that purpose. How much money do you need to serve that goal? And then the third piece is to create a plan to actually do it. Write it down. Give yourself a deadline. All right, everybody. That is it for today. That is it for the week. Thank you for those of you who have joined us here every day this week for an hour of your time.
Thanks, Dan. Great
This is
stuff.
actually the first day. Finally, it took me 4 days to actually get it right, but we actually finished within an hour. Can you imagine that? Love it. Yeah, thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. If so, we'll be doing it again at some point. Let other people know about it. Join us again. And here's the other piece to it too. I actually teach this to young adults and high schoolers as well. And the main reason, that's actually how I started teaching the class, just because it was one of my personal missions is to help young people understand kind of how the world works, since our financial institutions don't really do that. I think it's important for young people to learn a lot of what is taught in this class. And I was pretty floored when I found out that Keller Williams had created a process and a course and an organization to do that as well. That was a mission that I kind of set out for myself when I was in college, or it was a dream that I had when I was in college. And so it was pretty incredible to be able to find that within our organization, to find that opportunity within our organization. So from time to time, I do it about twice a year. I'll teach this for young adults and high schoolers. If you have any way, if you know of anybody or have any kind of connections to, high school or young adults, kids in college essentially, or just out of college, that you think would be, that this material would be good for, I would love it for you to help in spreading the word on that, or
Where do
supporting
you
it as
do
well.
this?
I do it. I've been teaching it virtually the past 2 years, or the past year and a half, really. And then I've taught it in Stanford. I've taught it here in Ridgefield. It depends. So I don't have one on the books right now, or on the calendar right now. I am looking to do something, to do one maybe at the end of December, in the break between the holidays, or just after the holidays, because that tends to be a good time for college students since they're
Yeah.
still home.
Now, can you let us know? Because like my kids are in college, so I know a lot of people who have kids in college.
Yep.
So, and when we were going through this, I was thinking this is like, I remember when I was on the Board of Ed and being appalled to find out that they did not teach even a class, as a mandatory social studies class, an economics class, kids. Because they did 100 years ago in New York City when I was in high school, you had to take it or you couldn't graduate.
Yeah, it blows my mind that there's no sort of personal finance education. There's no sort of education around personal finance, investing.
Some schools have it as an elective, but you have to be a pretty motivated kid to choose that over maybe there's some other elective that's gonna.
And I like to kind of add on to that too, because I was just in high school not too long ago, and there was, I think, 2 classes that I took was personal finance and entrepreneurship. And those